Hello everybody, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Shades of Vengeance here, Leo, and I'm talking to Ed about Era Kaiju. How are you, Ed?
Hi Leo, thank you very much for sitting down with me and having a chat. I love talking Era Kaiju, as everybody by now will know.
Yep, so one of our newest games, if not the newest, where we get to be, as far as I'm aware, Big Beastie and smash things up.
That is correct. You get to play as what's known as a beta kaiju. So Godzilla might be an alpha kaiju. You are actually a slightly smaller creature. Well, I say that, you can have the ability to be the size of an alpha kaiju. But you will only have a limited number of abilities, because where you have Godzilla or King Ghidorah, they have lots and lots and lots of abilities each. Whereas with a beta kaiju, you actually are more designed to be working in a group. So you'll only get one ability each.
Okay, so you've only got one power to deal with. Is it a power set, or is it more of a mutation?
So it's sort of a mutation-y thing. You really only have the one thing. For example, let's say you can spew an energy beam from your mouth, Godzilla style. Mm-hmm. That would be all you're able to do. So you wouldn't have all of the other things Godzilla has, like armor plating, regeneration, and so on. Those are separate abilities that you could choose to have instead. So the way in which you actually apply that could be very, very clever, for a kaiju at least. Let's say you're fighting another kaiju and you're not winning, but you use your energy beam on the rock face above him and cause an avalanche to bury your opponent completely within those falling rocks. That's one way you might use an energy beam that isn't a direct attack.
So this is the chance for players and game masters at their table to do their own spin on a classic monster movie.
Absolutely. The game was made with the intention that you would be able to run your own monster movie. And okay, it's sort of built with the intention that you are a beta kaiju and a group of beta kaiju. But if you wanted to play with a small number of players, you could recreate something like, I don't know, King of the Monsters, the Godzilla movie by Legendary. You could recreate that movie, have the one player and the GM, for example. The one player plays as Godzilla. Or you could do a Godzilla versus Kong thing, or the new one, the Forgotten Kingdom, I believe it's called. And you could have two players and a GM, for example, and recreate that sort of scenario where if you're going to win, you're going to have to work together.
So in this case, the GM is the big bad and everybody else, the population, but the players only have to focus on their beta kaiju, what power they have and what their role is in the world, the setting.
Absolutely. Of course, in the examples I just gave, perhaps they play as an alpha kaiju, and the rules for an alpha kaiju are very clear in the book as well. Obviously, they have to be, because as a GM, you might need to make one. So it's very clear what the difference is between an alpha kaiju and a beta kaiju. I would only recommend that if you're a GM and you're running with 3 or 4 players, they shouldn't be alpha kaiju, because if they're alpha kaiju that work together, you're never going to... I'll finish off. You're never going to have a monster that they can't defeat.
What about humanity? What if the GM decided to just run the army against your kaiju players?
So that's a mechanic that already exists within the game. There's a confidence mechanic, which is designed really to swing a long way and very quickly based on what you do. So a bunch of fumbles in a row in one of the playtests led to one of the group of kaiju, because it's shared. It led to one of the kaiju causing the group to actually be attacked by a whole bunch of different enemies. And what happens when humanity decides to attack you is they send in the tanks, they send in the planes, and it doesn't matter mechanically within the game how many humanity you destroy, because from a kaiju's perspective, humanity is infinite. So they will continually approach and attack you forever. They will whittle 1 health off you every combat turn without fail while they're attacking you. So once they start attacking you, it is only a matter of time before you actually lose your health.
Is there a way to regain confidence and get them to stop you, or is that a GM's discretion kind of
No,
play?
absolutely. Yes, there's some GM's discretion involved. I always think that's really important, as I know you already know. But there is a table in the book which describes how you lose confidence and how you gain it. So you lose confidence by crushing people, or maybe knocking over buildings, or doing damage. You know, it's would humanity believe that you're more of a threat than a help by the things you do? At the same time, if you were to say, hold a building up so people could evacuate, or maybe, I don't know, get over some people so that the falling debris from a building hit you and not the people, or if you were to defeat an alpha kaiju and force it to run away, or even defeat and destroy the alpha kaiju.
Or put out a wildfire with your tail.
Put out a wildfire, an excellent example. One that's not specifically in the table, but definitely something that I would encourage any GM. You'd look at that and you go, right, okay, this would be a thing that would gain you humanity. Yeah, I can write a table until the cows come home. I could write an endless book of 20 pages of tables and there would still be circumstances. That's why I believe so much in GM's discretion on this. And I try to give examples. So, for example, I think putting out a wildfire with your tail might be anywhere between +5 and +10 confidence, which is quite significant when you consider confidence is a 50 total.
Oh, so not too dissimilar to the other times we've used confidence in
Irelias, yes. The difference here really is that confidence is much more swingy in Era Kaiju. It will change a lot more quickly and a lot more easily, whereas in Irelias, it does tend to go up. It's just the speed at which it goes up that it varies. And yes, you can make a mistake in Irelias and end up at 0 confidence, but it's quite rare and you really have to have done a lot wrong to end up in that situation.
So when you're setting up, I'm just thinking about all the ways I want to GM this. The question for a GM is, do you throw lots of little challenges at different players at different times, or do you set up different set pieces? How do you keep this balanced and interesting?
So I think that what Era Kaiju aims to do is give the GM the toolbox to make that decision. I was actually thinking a lot after a previous interview, a recent one. You could have a group of 4 beta kaiju who are searching for a territory that suits all of them, that they can work together to protect. You could actually have an adventuring party of kaiju travelling across the land trying to find their home, which I think is absolutely brilliant. The playtests I've run have been more that the kaiju are in one place and a threat arrives. So, for example, I can't believe it's not King Ghidorah lands in a meteor and they start to crack open the meteor before realizing that they're actually letting loose an alien kaiju of fantastic power. Or maybe one of their former friends, who was the 5th kaiju in the group, for example, has been turned into a powerful cyborg and now has a buzzsaw in its chest, or, whatever it is that has been done to this kaiju to make it a cyborg. So I think that you actually have a lot of really varied options on how you actually run this, and I want it that way. I didn't want to really pin it down really, really closely to you can only play this in this way. And I accept that means that people might look to me as the game designer a bit more for some more sessions, or some more advice on what sessions could look like. But I think that's a good thing, and I'm hoping that through the Kickstarter, we'll be able to fund some additional sessions to be able to guide people and give people ideas about what they could do, whether they run the session directly or not. I believe that every single person who hears Era Kaiju and understands what a beta kaiju is and how the group works will have an idea. I know that you came up with an idea that I then implemented in one of the sessions I pre-wrote, about environmental protesters who feel that the kaiju need to be protected. I thought that was a brilliant idea. It was very much a you idea and not a me idea. But it was a really strong idea for, okay, well now humanity are in your way, they're actually under your feet as a kaiju. You can't really get away from them because wherever you're going, they're following. They're now way more in danger than they ever would have been before, because they're trying to make sure the military don't attack you. Well, that could mean that you end up squishing them, and end up causing humanity confidence to plummet as a result of killing the protesters by mistake. So it's a really interesting concept, that as an example, about how you might actually bring this world to life. It's down to you, the GM, in your way. And I can make suggestions, and you can make suggestions, and anyone else can. My hope and my dream is that everyone comes up with their own way of telling a kaiju story with Era Kaiju.
So it's the same as all of our Era games. The idea is we give you a genre, we give you an idea, and we say run around in it.
Absolutely.
Take what you want and remix it.
Absolutely. It might not shock you to hear that my game design philosophy has not changed in the last 12 years. I'm very happy with it and the way in which we deliver games. And although it might not do everything that everyone wants, Era Kaiju that is, some people have asked about Pacific Rim style robots. I believe you could build those out of Era Kaiju rules if you wanted to, but no, it's not part of my vision for what Era Kaiju looks like, at least not at this stage. it's possible that I'll decide to expand it a bit. And again, that comes back to how successful is the Kickstarter? How much more money do I have to invest in this actual idea to bring it to life and flesh out the world a bit more?
Have you got any clues you'd like, or breadcrumbs you'd like to drop for any listeners, or are you wanting to keep that under your hat?
Well, let me see. What I can say is that I do like an idea that was suggested to me about how we could have a human element to it as well. Devotees of the Era D10 rule set might have heard of a game called Battlecruiser Alamo. And that rule set actually provides the perfect opportunity for one character who... Let's draw on the Godzilla animated series from the 90s, for example. You've got your Matthew Broderick character, whose name I can never remember in character. But you've got that character, and you've obviously got Godzilla as well. Well, what if you could have a kaiju and then a human that's linked to that particular kaiju as its advocate? So you can roleplay on the ground using, well, I mean, you could do it with Era D10 Fundamentals, to be honest, the free booklet that's available on the website. At the same time, you can be your kaiju in those big fights, and your human element is really not doing a lot with it. It's just cheering it on. It's not participating in the fight. So I think that would be a really fun thing to include, and I don't think it would take a lot of rule writing to actually make that a possibility. So I'd love to make that a stretch goal.
So an extra dimension for roleplay possibilities.
Absolutely. If I'm honest, Era Kaiju is a bit light on the fully interactive roleplay possibilities. It's often really good fun to play a character that can't speak. A character that can only communicate the broadest of its intentions through roaring. It's great fun, and Era Silence is a really good example of a game where we played that to the hilt. But it does have limitations.
This proves I haven't played a playtest in a long time, because I thought it was Hulk rules. I thought you could just go, grunt, me, But no, you've got to just, as a player, you've got to explain your intentions.
And as a GM, and as part of the GM advice in the book, I advise that you limit what people are allowed to do. It takes elements from a lot of games we made. We've mentioned Era Liars, we've mentioned Era Silence. Era Kaiju is intended to give you the experience of being a kaiju and one of a group of kaiju, and the difficulties that come up from that. That includes, if you fail a willpower check at the wrong time, you might just go on a rampage. You lose control of yourself. Especially imagine humanity's attacking you, and you don't feel like you've done anything wrong, but they're attacking you. You just fell over. And humanity is suddenly firing tanks and missiles at you. You might just go on a rampage.
You've got a fear of fire, and suddenly a big missile goes off in your face.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you have to roll a willpower check, and it goes badly. Yeah.
It could well.
Actions meet consequences, the role-playing game.
Absolutely. But that's the essence of tabletop role-playing, isn't it? That's the whole point, really. That's why we sit down at the table with our friends. It's to solve problems together, but have limits placed on how far we can go to solve problems. Kaiju are not super intelligent beings. They can't use language. They can't speak in the same way. They operate on highly evolved instinct. And a good player and a good group will really take that and manage it to the hilt, because that's the way this game really shines.
Sounds like a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to seeing it get finished. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much.